with a Portacom in the Hiab Semi. Probably got about 6 hours ahead of me down to the Kapiti coast from Auckland, so it should be a nice drive, and I think it's going to give me an opportunity to talk about something that has been coming up on social media a lot lately. And after having a conversation with someone, because he called me up inquiring about a semi-trailer that I'm selling, he mentioned how men feel distressed and unhappy that they can't just give out compliments to women at random in public anymore, that it's not safe, that they'll get ridiculed or accused of something. Now, I really want to try and approach this from a non-judgmental, logical and factual point of view. If there are any generalizations, please remember that that's exactly what they are, and this does not apply to everybody. I believe every single person on the planet is a unique individual. Sometimes it's easier to put people into one category just for descriptive purposes, but please note that whether I'm talking about men or if I'm talking about women, I know this does not apply to everybody in that gender at all. That's my little disclaimer. I really do sympathize and understand the concern, confusion, and fear that men might be feeling about not feeling that it's okay to engage with women socially in public and say nice things, which is a shame, because it'd be nice if we could all say nice things to each other all the time and there'd be no problem with it whatsoever. Unfortunately, there are many people in the world that have agendas that go beyond just being kind to somebody. That's why this is not such a simple topic, and it might take a little bit to break it down, but there are very good reasons why it may be unadvisable to compliment or approach women in certain settings from a biological standpoint. If we look at this factually, men in general are larger than women, stronger, more capable of inflicting physical force. Now, this is not a judgment, this is just a biological fact, which I think we can all agree on. That difference in physical strength is present whether we are thinking about it or not. You add to that the majority of women have experienced physical abuse or threats to their safety from a man or men in their lifetime. Now, again, this does not apply or say at all that all men are dangerous and violent and threaten women. Not at all. But unfortunately, vast majority of women have experienced this threat, this very real fear. Whether we're aware of it or not, we think differently when we interact. So if you approach a female at a gas station, ask yourself what your intention is. Is it to just generally be friendly and kind, or is there something inside that's going, well, I find her attractive, maybe if the opportunity arose, more could come of it. Now, I'm not saying at all that this is what drives every man to approach a female, but the fact that this can happen and does happen, it is a motivating factor for a man to approach a woman. It means that women cannot write that off, which could then become a threat in that situation. And you ask, well, why is it a threat? And here's where we do stop excusing the biology, because this is when we need to really look at behavior. If when a female is approached by a male that finds her attractive and given a compliment, if no matter what the female, how they responded, whether it's positively or negatively, if the male could take that and see it as a non-personal attack or insult, we would have very different thoughts about what it's like to be approached in those scenarios. Because if it could be taken well by any male, then females will be safe to either appreciate, reciprocate the attraction or the affection or the interest, or decline it without any fear. Now, unfortunately, this is just not the reality. We are not born with fear. Every female that has fear or wariness around males has that fear either because a parent has warned them, but most of us have experienced this for ourselves. You learn the hard way to not do stupid stuff when you're young. Females learn the hard way to be cautious when it comes to interacting with males or being too friendly. And that one I find really sad, because I want to be naturally who I am and engage with people on a really friendly, no ulterior motives basis whenever the moment arises. But I have learned the hard way that sometimes my friendliness or politeness or whatever it comes across as is received or interpreted as flirting or interest, which to me means that for me to be safe, for me to avoid offending somebody, I have to hold myself back a bit. I have to be colder than I would want to be. And the sad irony there is, more likely I get the other side of it, which is, oh, I'm seen as a bit of a bitch. And because that is so unpleasant for me, I'd rather be friendly, because to me it's a kindness thing, and it's not fair for me to clump everybody into the category of this person is a threat. But in reality, they are. I don't know them, and I don't know what their reaction is going to be to my boundary, whatever my boundary is, and everybody's will be different. Where the danger comes into this is that we should be able to state our preferences on any topic without that being offensive to another person, and safe to say yes or no. No hard feelings, but that's just not what I want. But reality states that that's not the case. I wish it was, but it seems a little bit too common that when a female puts up a no or does not wish to engage with a male, that it is taken as an insult, as a personal insult, when in reality we don't even know you. It's not personal at all. It's like offering somebody, I don't know, an apple and then saying no. They're not saying no because they don't like you. They're saying no because they don't feel like an apple. It's the response that females have received over a lifetime that makes us prefer not to be approached by strangers in a way that might imply that more is desired, might demand more of us, only because we don't know you. We don't know if you're one of those males that is genuinely just lovely and friendly and would be the most awesome person in the world to get to know, or if it's somebody that as soon as their ego is slightly touched, that they're going to flip from friendly to hostile. And if you think that is a rare occurrence, then I can guarantee you're a male, because sadly it is quite common for a male to become hostile towards a female who does not reciprocate their enthusiasm. hostility can look like different things. In many cases, it's not the extreme version of violence or outward anger, but a nastiness. It's a shift in energy you can feel without words. And it's that shift that feels threatening, because we as females have felt that shift in a non-public environment, most of us, with a partner or with another male, that without eyes watching, they do move from it being a shift in energy to an outward display of disapproval or anger. I'm not explaining this as succinctly as I would want to, and I do apologize, but I really do hope that you guys in general can appreciate that females, as a fact, are smaller than you, and most of us have been threatened by a man at some point. It is survival instincts that are making us weary. It is nothing to do with you personally. I would love nothing more than to freely, without thinking, without worrying, interact with anybody that smiles or wants to talk to me or have a chat. I would love that. I really hope that with better understanding, less judgment, trying to see the point of view from each other's perspective, that this void that's opened up between the genders is brought down until really there isn't one. Because we have amazing things to offer as individuals that go way beyond our gender. My biology is the least interesting thing about me, and yet our caveman brain is tuned to judge on a very superficial level. That's how it works. It keeps us safe by doing that. It assesses the environment and gives us an instantaneous threat warning, summary, chance of reproduction, chance of food. That's what our brain is designed to do. It is a survival mechanism. So we still as humans are operating under very ancient brain functions, which includes just seeing the superficial characteristics of each other. And one of those that stands out is our gender. Anybody in an industry that is dominated by the opposite gender will know that one of the first things people notice about you is your gender. And they will, whether they're even aware of it, they will judge and interact with you based on that gender. I'll use an example as a female truck driver, because I get this pretty much daily, and it's always with new people that I haven't interacted with before, because they are interacting with what they see on the surface straight away. And this is what their brain goes. It sees, female truck driver, that's strange. There was a lady that backed into the lamppost in her Prius outside my house the other day. Female drivers are not as good as males. I don't know if she'll be able to back that truck around here. It looks pretty big for her. Now, that process may happen consciously, but it often happens unconsciously. And it happens with me too. I notice my own unconscious bias. I assume other truck drivers are male. And I'm also surprised when I see another female driving. So it's not to be critical of our unconscious biases, but aware of them and what they do to the way that we perceive or predict a situation is going to unfold. Because that's what our brains do. They are predicting machines. And all of this is so that we can survive. We're not actually in that survival state so much anymore. We live in a modern world, but our brain has not evolved past being a caveman. And so that's where it's up to us. We have to now move into conscious awareness of how the brain functions, what our body, our hormones, our brain is programmed to do, and how we can think around those consciously to interact in a way that better appreciates the individual human being below the surface. Any person that you meet is far more complex than your animal brain will ever give them credit for straight off. And we all know that. Once we get to know people, we're often stunned and amazed at the hobbies they have and the things they've done, the places they've been, the wisdom that they have. So we have to try and, when we interact with people for the first time, see them as complex and know that we don't know them. Accept that. And accept that we don't know how they feel about certain things and how they'll respond. And whatever their response is, we also have to remember that that's their response from their perspective, which is shaped by their experience in life. It's not a reflection on us. So as soon as we can stop taking things so personally, these interactions in public with strangers will get safer for everybody. Men can feel more confident to talk to women if women feel safer that they're respected as a human being and that their boundaries will be respected. It doesn't mean that we can't interact, and I really hope that it doesn't get to that point where people are afraid to talk to each other at all. That would be really sad. But as men, where you can help, because I can guarantee there's a lot of you out there that will be like, well, this doesn't happen, this isn't me, I would never do that. But you can still help this situation, because you would have been in a friend circle, you would know some people that maybe talk about females in a certain way, like, oh yeah, well, that bitch was a snob. When you hear something like that, you now have the opportunity to maybe help them reframe this. And everybody has what is called distorted thinking. It's called cognitive distortion, where we put our own story on something we see. So if you're a friend that's getting down about a female's behavior or feels like he's been rejected, maybe you can tell him that, well, maybe she was having a really bad day and it had nothing to do with you. Maybe she just got fired and she's on the verge of tears. Maybe she experienced abuse, highly likely, at some point from a male that's made her terrified. All of those maybes had nothing to do with your friend or the person that feels rejected. It's all to do with the other person's life experience. And the more we can see other people as complex unknowns and respect the way they are and their decisions without having to impose on them or demand things from them, like, the easier it will be for everybody, you know? Once we stop blaming ourselves for rejection, because this happens to females too. We also experience rejection, and then we have this exact same habit of feeling bruised, unloved, unwanted, and it feels yuck. We know it feels yuck too, but ultimately when we get rejected, it's the apple story again. That person didn't want an apple, one way or the other. It's their preference, and we have to respect the preference of other people. Plus, hell, wouldn't you want somebody that actually wants an apple rather than someone that doesn't? Otherwise, that's a waste of an apple. I might be getting a little deep in the apple metaphor. I don't know if it quite fits, but I hope this has clarified it even a little bit. And, you know, I'd love to have some really open, honest, authentic, and respectful conversation about this. Just remember, there is always a conscious choice to act. Otherwise, basically, we'd claim we're out of control with everything we do in life, and we know that's not true. choice. Your reaction is a choice. Now, it took me a while to understand that a reaction could be a choice, especially when emotions evolve. It seems so instantaneous that we get overcome by them. But the more you practice awareness, the more you start labeling and trying to understand your own emotions and see what triggered them with curiosity, not with judgment, then the more you can increase that gap between a trigger and an emotion and a reaction. You can't stop the emotion, but you can feel it, acknowledge it, and then choose. You get to choose how you respond. And that choice is where your power is, because that's where you say to the world who you are. That's where you say, you know what, that did make me angry, but I choose not to react in a way that would hurt or threaten another person. Doesn't mean I can't express the way it made me feel, but I get to choose my action from this point forward. And that might seem like a simple concept, but we all know it's not. It's taken me years of practice to increase that gap and acknowledge that it is my responsibility to respond, not to react. So, at the risk of making this a 6-hour-long yarn, I'm going to leave it there. But I'd love to engage in this topic further and hear your opinions. But I do encourage you to do it respectfully, and I hope I've done that. If I haven't, I apologize now, because my aim is not to create more divide. I believe we are much more similar than people have led us to believe in the past. I don't think males and females are that different. We just have different perspectives and hormones, but a lot of this is being exaggerated, conditioned into us because of the way society treats us. If you look at, say, if you've got a brother and sister in the same family, just have a look at how the different genders are treated by the same parents. I could see the way I'm treated compared to males as a young kid, at school, and as an adult. We are treated and conditioned differently from the little things, but it adds up. We have to acknowledge that these gender roles and the way we treat different genders and what we expect from different genders shapes the way we think a lot more than we give credit for. We seem to focus so much on these chromosomes and say that they make us vastly different. But honestly, I don't think that's where the difference lies. I think the difference lies in how we are perceived by the world and therefore our experience of life in the world. Underneath, we are just as complex, filled with dreams. We've all got egos, and there's really no limits to what either gender can do, but a lot of us have limits imposed on us by how society has written gender roles, and we're not even aware of it. People don't even have to tell us that this is what you should be doing. We just naturally believe it because it's what we witness everywhere. So I invite you to start challenging those beliefs. Well, first, before you challenge them, try and find them. Find those core beliefs that will govern a huge amount of the behaviours and the interactions you have on a very normal, everyday kind of basis. Because that's where exciting changes and the removal of limitations happens. Think about what your gender has channeled you towards, what it expects of you, and likewise consider that for the other gender. And you might find that if you removed a lot of those conditions that have been put on us, that the next stage of evolution, is conscious choice and awareness. Biology's got us to this point. Natural selection has got us up to this point, and the exciting thing is, after that, we get to choose. It's our turn to select who we want to be and where we want to go and what we want this world to look like. And me personally, I vote for greater understanding, kindness, and acknowledgement of our differences as a positive thing. Different perspectives make the world a more interesting, colourful, and creative place, and it helps us all keep our minds open to new possibilities. We can do this. A better world is not some fantasy. It's ours to create when we're ready to do it, and I'm fucking ready. So if you're with me, let's do it. Have a good one.